it's the things that kind of stick with you. They early things in life, early life experiences, they stick with you because I still make lasagna to this day, but I've upgraded it. Okay. I make a mean lasagna. When I make lasagna for people, they're like, can we have some more of that? Can you bring that? It's like the staple thing that people want me to bring to events because I make a mean lasagna. So things that you do early in life, they stick with you. And there's something primal about food. There's something really deep about food. What does food have to do with what we're talking about? I think it is one of the most purpose oriented experiences that we have as human beings. This need to eat is just with us, it's a part of us. Innately, we, when we're hungry, we go to find food. Similarly, when we're thirsty, we go to get something to drink. It is something within us that moves us to action. We're designed that way. We're designed to need food, to eat. We need to sleep. If we don't do these things, we don't function well. I'm a completely different person when I don't eat or when I don't sleep. My mood is better when I do. I have more energy. Life is just different. Now, different people, we sense different needs more than others, but regardless of how intense these needs might be for us, we're aware when we're hungry. We're aware when something is missing, and we launch into the search to find this thing. Purpose is just like that. Now, I know a lady who would go from panic to suicide ideation in just moments. It can be pretty intense. It can be pretty intense for her. Now, she'd go back and forth from depression to anxiety, whether the event was triggered by relationship ending or uncertainty about her career. The things she was hoping for were consistently letting her down. And when they'd be missing from her life, when she would feel this absence, she would feel a sense of purpose missing. Confidence was gone. And so was her reason for living. She's not alone. 12 people die by suicide daily, and more than 200 people attempt suicide every day. If you are struggling with thoughts of ending your life, in Canada, you can call 988. It's a secure crisis helpline. There are many, many, many factors that contribute to people wanting to end their lives. The sense of hopelessness, this loss of purpose and awareness of one's value is common, regardless of the different issues. These are the things that people are facing. So, whether you're dealing with thoughts of self harm or someone you know is, the topic of purpose is definitely an important one to dig into. So, for those of you who are new to me, I'm Coach Drew, and I'm going to be sharing my understanding of purpose and its impact on our lives. You cannot discuss the purpose of life without venturing into one's beliefs and their worldview. So, I'll be sharing some of my beliefs and where I find purpose. And by all means, make use of the chat. You can throw in your beliefs and where you come from, your perspectives as we go along. There's a lot we could cover, but I'm going to focus on three things: how understanding impacts our esteem, our understanding of purpose, how it impacts our esteem, and how understanding purpose impacts our outlook. And then number three, what we could do to improve both our sense of esteem and our outlook, because they're connected, but they're different. So we're going to talk about how to improve them. Right? If you have questions, by all means, be sure to throw them in the chat. And yeah, here we go. What is purpose? Purpose is the reason for which something is done. Right? It's the reason for which something is done or created or for which something exists. Okay. Reason, it's like the cause, right? It's a cause, an explanation, or justification. Okay? A justification for an action or event. But reason is also the power of the mind to think and understand and form judgments by a process of logic. We use these terms interchangeably sometimes, but if you think about it, we use reason to consider our reason. Okay? But this leads to the discussion of our worldview. Okay? Our worldview is a particular philosophy, a philosophy about life or conception of the world. Sometimes we don't even know it, but we ask ourselves, why are we here? What's the point of this existence? Now, sometimes we don't realize that we're asking these questions, but we're not really asking a question. We're really making more of a statement. I call them statements in disguise. Why am I here? Why am I even here? You know, what's the point of me being here? Sometimes we don't allow that to be a real question. It's more a statement in disguise. Can you hear what the statement is? The statement is, I have no reason to be here. I have no purpose. Right? You hear it in the tone of the question. But for now, I think it's important to allow these questions to be questions, true, genuine questions. Why am I here? What is my purpose? Allow it to be a question, not an assumption or a statement that you don't have purpose. Just because you don't know what your purpose is doesn't mean you don't have one. The fact that you're here, the fact that you exist, means you already have purpose. I don't believe we created ourselves. I do believe in a creator. So if you believe in that, then it's a whole lot easier to make some sense out of this idea of purpose. But I imagine that some people don't think a lot about their worldview, about the questions that are woven into the fabric of their human existence. And while some people don't think about it, others can't stop thinking about it. And they experience what we call existential crises because they can't understand it. Some people don't believe you can even know the answer to the questions about purpose. But on the other hand, there are others like myself whose life routinely digs into understanding purpose. You know, as a child, I decided I was going to be a doctor, a medical doctor. That was my purpose, my self-proclaimed purpose. But when I failed chemistry in high school, I descended into depression because my goal, it didn't seem possible. It didn't seem possible anymore. Now, there were a couple of reasons why I wanted to be a doctor: financial security and a sense of significance. And without the assurance of these things, I felt unsafe. I panicked. I was anxious perpetually all the time. It was all consuming. And that also led to depression for me. You know, some people talk about having a midlife crisis. Well, I actually had a mid-teen life crisis. Didn't know it at the time, but that's what was going on for me. Depression, anxiety, there's often a strong link between the two. And that link is also connected to purpose. How we see the world, how we see ourselves, it impacts our sense of self, our esteem. So I want us to take a look at how self-esteem, purpose, anxiety, and depression are all linked. Okay, they can be linked. Self-esteem. Essentially, self-esteem is confidence in one's own worth or abilities. It's self-respect. It's based on a concept, a cognitive construct. The information you know about yourself, how you identify yourself. Okay? These things contribute to our sense of identity. Now, there is a big difference between being a human being and being a human doing. Okay. We're going to get into that in a moment, but I want to highlight something that's really critical that a lot of people overlook when it comes to self-esteem. I highlighted that there's a self-concept, this cognitive construct, these ideas that you have about yourself. It's information. My name is so and so. I come from this place. I believe this. That's all information. But that information not only registers in our heads, but in our hearts. We have a felt sense about who we are, what it feels like to be Andrew, to be Dr. Andrew Blackwood, to be Coach Drew, to be dad, to be whatever, what it feels like to be me. That's what I call it an experiential self-concept. This is where we live from. Yes, it starts with our beliefs, but it comes through our feelings and our experience of ourselves. It's important to be aware of that because a lot of people have this divide and they don't realize that there's a difference between the two. Okay, we can think one thing about ourselves, but we live another thing altogether. We want to pay attention to the experiential part. Okay? We want to pay attention to both. So I'm going to circle back to this and sew these two together. But I want to highlight that self-esteem is a part of everyone's life, whether you talk about it this way or not, it's going to be there. We have an awareness of ourselves. And here's where it gets a little tricky. Human beings versus human doing. There's a difference between your role and who you are. Mm. Big difference. So roles. This is how we function. The assumed functions and roles or parts we play, a person or a thing, a role, is a situation. And in our world, we're using roles to define our worth quite often. Okay? Like I said, when I was younger, I wanted to be a doctor. It was a role. I anticipated this role. It had meaning to me. It had meaning to me. But what you notice, I as life progresses, you quite often move into roles and quite often you move out of roles. Some of those roles that you move into they're wonderful. They might even last most of our lives. And some of them, they're temporary. They don't last very long. And we're grateful. My first, well, actually, it wasn't my first job. My first job, I was 16 and I worked downtown for the Ministry of Culture, Tourism, and Recreation. It was a mouthful then, it still is right now. But I really actually liked that job. But the job I was thinking about telling you that I was so glad that was just transient, it was temporary, was working in the bank. I was a teller and I hated doing foreign exchange transactions. I hated that the most because it had so many steps. It had so many steps to it. It was just not a simple process. Maybe it's been changed. And I'm a smart guy, but when I'm stressed, I don't do multi-step processes very well. Chemistry is one of the multi-steps. Math, long equations, like I don't do that well. So it was not a good job for me because I didn't know how to handle my stress at that moment. So it was a role, but it wasn't me. Okay. We are not our roles. We fill roles. Roles are transient. We move into them and out of them. Some of them, they may last the majority of our lives. I'm a son. I will always be a son. As long as my parents are living, I will be their son. I'm a father. As long as I'm alive, I hope that I outlive my children. I will be a father. I'm a counselor. I was a registered psychotherapist. I'm now a coach. I do all these different things, but I'm the same person. Okay? It's important. Roles are not who we are. They're things that we fill. You know what fills those things? Our character, our character traits, our qualities, our gifts. That's what we take to fill roles. Okay? It's important to know the difference because the role is what we do. The person is who we are. Human beings, it's about who you are. It's not about what you do. Okay? It's important to recognize the difference. So, like I said before, as a child and a teen, I sought after a role to meet what I now call three core human beings, human needs, rather. Okay. And these needs, these roles were intrinsically connected to my outlook and my struggle with anxiety and depression. Okay. There was a strong connection. Okay. Let me talk to you a little bit about these three core needs. I believe this is true for every human being. One of the verses, one of the most powerful verses for me, anyways, in the scripture, talks about God not giving us a spirit of fear, but of power and love and soundness of mind. This is not just about moods, this is about our human nature. No one that I know of does well in environments where we are fearful, environments where there's control and there's domination. No one does well in that. The opposite of that is where we feel strong, where we have a sense of power, where we are aware that I can impact change in my life and in the lives of other people, where you know that your choice matters and makes a difference. That's what it means to feel strong. If we don't feel that kind of strength, we feel powerless. And I don't know anybody who likes to feel powerless. And when I talk to people, they highlight, some people who enjoy, certain kind of erotic interactions where there is this power dynamic. But what's interesting, they choose that. There is choice exercised, even when we choose to surrender our choice. That is an exercise of strength. Okay? When we don't have choice, we don't do well. Love and feeling a sense of significance, knowing that you belong, that you matter, that if you're not there, your presence will be missed. It makes a difference. This is about significance. If we do not know that we are significant, we will feel insignificant, unimportant, unseen, unheard, unloved, all those uns. That's what we're going to feel. And people who feel that way, you will see how it plays out in their lives. They will do anything to be accepted. And when they're not accepted and they believe that they're truly unimportant, there's no point to their lives, in comes thoughts of not being here anymore. And all these things are connected to feeling a sense of safety, which deprives us of soundness of mind. When we don't feel safe, whether from our practical needs being met, our emotional needs being met, our spiritual, psychological needs, if these needs go unmet, we feel unsafe. There's a sense of vulnerability. There's this weakness that ties into not feeling strong. It's important to realize these are human needs. And when these needs are not met, people act out. And I imagine as you're thinking about yourself or someone you know, you think about some behaviors that are not healthy. Can you make those connections? It's possibly this for that person. It's possibly this for that person. Or more importantly, that's what it is for me. So as a child, when I failed chemistry, remember that role meant financial security to me. I was picturing myself living under a bridge, homeless. No one respected or loved me or cared about me because I wasn't going to be a doctor in my head. Okay? It's so important to understand and make these connections, whether it's for yourself or for someone else, so that you can actually come alongside that person and journey with this person. If you notice that extreme nature of how I thought as a child and a teen, even as a young adult, there's this pattern or flavor of thought. I call it all or nothing thinking. After all these years of working in mental health and helping people, I've learned a thing or two about anxiety and depression. learned about myself, and it's been helpful to help me, and I use it to help my kids, and I use it to help other people. That's what I do. That's part of my purpose. But learning what I learned and having these experiences, that's what led me to putting an online course together. It's called Conquering the Big Five. But I mentioned this earlier, this understanding of anxiety and depression, how it's connected. A really simplified way of understanding anxiety is it's a picture of the future that's negative. When we picture things in the future, whether we're doing it intentionally or not, we're going to feel anxiety register in our bodies. Most people, some people, they picture really horrible things about life and they don't feel anything. They don't feel it. It's strange, unusual, I should say. You hear that judgment, strange, but it's unusual and it's uncommon. Most of us, when we feel anxious, is because we're picturing something negative. Well, a depressing perspective about the past, a negative view about the past, that causes us to feel depressed. Whether it's all these horrible things happen to me and you picture them and you remember you feel it in your body, or it's this conclusion that you come to, well, life is not worth living. Like nothing's going to change. I don't have power. I don't have control. I can't. You hear that negative language, that negative conclusion, it's all or nothing thinking. That is actually a pattern of thought, and you can hear it in people's language. Okay? It's important to recognize these words, this language, because it's telling you about a thought pattern, the thought pattern. And you notice you can move from one situation in life, one relationship, one job, you can move from one place to the next. And everybody knows the constant is you. But more important than you in body is you in mind. If you continue to think the same way, you're going to continue to have the same feelings, and those feelings are going to drive the behavior. You cannot run from the way that you think. It's like trying to outrun your shadow. It's not going to happen, right? It's not Never Land. You're not Peter Pan. Like you cannot leave your shadow behind. It's not sewed to you or anything like that. It is a part of who you are. The way that you think is a part of who you are. You can't get rid of it, but you can change it. You can change it. So it's important to understand that external things, life events that are beyond control, but what happens in you, how you respond to thoughts, that's what makes the difference. So we've talked a little bit about purpose, what it is, how it impacts your esteem. And I want to be very clear. When we think that we are only valuable when we fulfill a role, that impacts our esteem in a very critical way because our esteem, our worth, our value is attached to a role. It's wonderful to fulfill these roles or to experience fulfilling these roles. The issue is it becomes a performance-based existence. When your value is based on your performance, it becomes problematic because I don't know about you, but I'm not perfect. As much as I love my children, I'm glad I know that there's no such thing as a perfect parent. I will have good days and I will have not so good days. Yes, I could grow, but I'm never going to be perfect. I'm never going to get it all right. And if my value of myself as a person or even as a parent is based just on my performance, then it's going to fluctuate with the execution of my often ideal expectations. Can you see how that's problematic? If my worth as a person plummets when my performance plummets. And here's why it gets even worse because often our performance is evaluated by other people. Can you see how that's problematic? If your worth is based on your performance, and that performance is judged and evaluated by other people. Other people's opinions matter the most. Then other people determine your value. That's not a good place to be because we know people's opinions change like the weather. One day they like you, one day they don't. That's just human nature. Okay? If you have consistent friends and family, you are blessed. Okay? You're blessed to be that kind of person. But even then, we're not going to be perfect. So if you notice your esteem is going up and down, check and see whether or not it's performance based. Is it based on roles? Is it based on other people's opinions of how you fill those roles? Or is it based on the essence of who you are? Now, some of us have been so deeply entrenched and focused on what we don't do well, or even our character flaws. Let's talk about those for a minute because we talked about esteem and roles. But let's take a look at the thought patterns. It might not be so obvious, but to expect that even in your character that you will be 100% kind all the time, that you'll be perfect, that you'll be thoughtful all the time. Like like I said before, I'm a person of faith. I believe in Jesus. He's the only person who's perfect. So if you have that kind of expectation of yourself, you're going to let yourself down. And if it's all or nothing, remember that thought pattern? That's thought pattern number one. There are five, and then a couple, and then bonus one. But in the course, there's five. They call it conquering the big five. That's just one. Can you see how that thought pattern can dismantle your sense of self? It will sabotage you in your roles, but it also makes its way into your thought life, how you interact with other people. Your expectations of them might be unrealistic, unattainable. It's important to realize how the way that you think informs your beliefs about yourself, but also about other people. It's pretty important. So let's talk a little bit about what we can do. What do you do now? Now that you have all of this wonderful information? Well, like I said, you're not a role. It's important to take a look at who you really are. Take a look at who you really are. And one of the things I like to do with people is I encourage them to think about the things that come naturally to them, the things that you enjoy. Well, you know me, I like to eat. I love to eat. But I also love to spend time with people while we eat, smaller groups, right? One on one, I'm more of an introverted person. I love connecting with people. I love listening to people. Deep down, I am a compassionate person. I love to laugh. I can be funny sometimes. Think about the things that come naturally to you, that bring you joy. When I moved out here to St. Catharines a few years ago, that's when it really dawned on me how much I enjoyed nature. I love being outside. I love walking. I walk until my feet have blisters. That's how much I enjoy it. I love walking. Think about things that you enjoy that make you you. Yes, there will be other people in the world who enjoy those things, but buying into that awareness, this is part of me naturally. I love it. And it's okay to love that about you. You can love that you love nature. That's you loving yourself, right? You love things that come naturally to you. Some people love art, they love music. You could love that you love music. And some people love music and they can't sing and they can't play a thing, but they love music. It's okay. Okay? Think about what comes naturally to you, what brings you joy. Another thing that you can do is stop comparing yourself. I talk with people about this often, very often. Comparison, one of my favorite artists. Jonathan McReynolds. He sings this song called Comparison Kills. It sure does. It kills our esteem, it kills our hopes, it kills our dreams. It would be really easy if me saying stop would just cause you to stop, right? Well, I won't just tell you to stop. In addition to telling you to stop, I'll give you some tips about how to stop. Okay. One, we already covered, start looking at your life and how you're unique. Okay. Um, but there's two steps to moving away from comparison. Okay. Two steps. Step number one, celebrate. Celebrate other people. Recognize what comes naturally to them. Recognize how they've invested the time and the effort, the focus to become great at what they do. Recognize how they've been blessed and celebrate them. Celebrate them. Learn to be genuinely happy for other people. When we have trouble being happy for other people, there's also this underlying thought pattern, this view of life, this worldview that I talked about earlier, that there isn't enough. There's not enough goodness. There's not enough joy in the world for somebody to be filled with it and then you to be filled too, right? It's like if somebody gets a good job, we sometimes begrudge other people because they got a good job. Well, them having a good job ain't got nothing to do with you not having a good job. There's enough jobs out there for you to have a good job. Even if that means you create your own job, start your own business. There's enough goodness out there in the world. Okay? We can learn to genuinely celebrate other people. When you celebrate other people, that's part one. Make it a habit. Learn to be happy for other people. Rejoice when they rejoice. You empathize, right? Empathy is not just for moments that are difficult. When somebody's sad, you empathize, right? No, when they're happy, you empathize. Experience joy with other people. Okay, that's part one. Part two, the cure for comparison is also appreciate, celebrate others, and appreciate what you have. Yep. Be grateful for what you have. Not just in the sense like it's a consolation prize. Yes, I'm grateful for. No, 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 no. I'm talking about really take the time to about the value of what you have, the potential, the blessing that it is. Take the time to really appreciate what you've been given and what you have. It's a two-pronged process to cure comparison. Celebrate others and appreciate what you have and who you are. Okay. So, one more thing that I think is really, really good for us to do is to consider the eternal spiritual nature of who you are. That is so much bigger than the typical ways we tend to measure life. We tend to measure life by material things. These material things, they come and they go. But I encourage people to get in touch with the Creator. Pay attention to your worldview. My worldview helps me to find peace within and beyond the uncertainty of this temporal world. Quite often, when we commune with the Creator, we find answers to the questions that we ask. Why am I here? What's wonderful about me? As a result, over the years, I've helped people move through different experiences of depression, anxiety, like I mentioned before. And my experiences, the training, have prepared me to help people in the way that I do. But I believe I was meant to do what I do. I was created to do it. I was built to help people. And the unique ways that I do it speak to who I am as a person, not just what I was created to do, but how I was created to do it in ways that no one else can. Because I am me, I'm the only version of me. And that makes me wonderful. It's part of my purpose to be me. And the same is true for you. The same is true for you. You were created to be you and nobody else. One of the things that people often ask is, Coach Drew, I don't know what my purpose is. Can you help me find my purpose? Of course. Of course I can. I would be honored to. And one of the things that I share with people is this resource. Yes, it's from a Christian perspective, but you don't have to be a Christian to make use of this resource. There's a QR code here. You just scan it, and it's a 7-day devotional where you can hear some ideas about purpose and moving beyond your ideas about a secondary purpose, which is your role, to your primary purpose, which is who you are as a human being. Now, I imagine we talked about these topics today in broader terms, but if you have some questions, by all means, feel free. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and you can either put your questions in the chat or you can raise your hand with the react button on the menu, and I will come to you.
Hey, good evening, Doc.
Good evening, Pastor Francis. How are you?
Oh, so good, so good. Hey, thank you again for the presentation. I have a question here. So I know for sure that somebody beyond the purpose of his life or her life brings satisfaction, fulfillment, and joy to that person's life.
Hmm.
But when that purpose is defeated, completely defeated, could be for one reason or the other. Let's say that somebody who has an accident and they eventually got his or her spine paralyzed.
Hmm.
And then obviously that mobility is paralyzed for the rest of his or her life,
Hmm.
which impedes the purpose of life. In that condition, what do you say? That person realizing completely that purpose of his life is there and there,
Hmm.
completely defeated. So what do you do? What do you say to that individual?
Yeah, well, my heart would go out to them to acknowledge that loss, whether we're talking about a limb or we're talking about a role. These are things that move people into a significant place of loss and grieving. If we don't understand that process of grieving, we can get stuck and we can get lost in it and stuck in the depression. And again, suicidal ideation will become really strong and likely if our worth and our value and our identity is solely wrapped up in that aspect of our being, whether we're talking about mobility or we're talking about motherhood, right? The loss of a child, I think at best you can barely survive that because of that love, but also that role. Invested in these roles are hopes for the future. The way that you move forward is completely different. But the way that you move forward and the value that you move forward with, two different things. Two different things. As you know, there are many people who go through devastating losses, whether it's, like you said, an accident, loss of limb or limbs, loss of buildings and family, and lots of different things. How do they do it? How do they move forward? At some level, at some point, they realize I'm still alive. I still have life, and there's value woven into my life, limbs or not. I can impact others with the essence of who I am. So I wouldn't quickly jump into this wonderfully inspiring speech when somebody's grieving because they don't want to hear that. They don't want to hear that. It's important to move through that grieving process. There's an honor about grieving what you've lost. If it meant nothing to you, then you'd be able to move on just fine. There's no loss. But if it meant a lot to you, it's important to honor that loss through grieving. And while you might lose parts of yourself, the essence of who you are is not lost. So it's an opportunity to see who you are, to value who you are, and what you can give as a result of who you are. So that's how I would approach that. It's a really good question, Pastor Francis. Now, I see another hand up. I'm probably going to pronounce your name wrong. Is it Nika?
Oh, thank you. How
Did I
are
get it right? How
you?
did how did
It's okay. Neka, it's okay.
NECA? Okay, thank you. Thank you. What's your question?
So, I really don't have a question. I just wanted to appreciate you for this session. Every time I come here, I may come here having questions maybe when you start, but then along the line, you there's somehow you seem to just answer that question that lots of times we compare day in, day out, when it comes ability to the others. So this has really helped to fuel, our engine to understand that they're different and their roles don't define who they are. It's so much value, so much value. I just wanted to appreciate you. Thank you so much. And I didn't even realize that empathy can work in both ways when people are celebrating. People just say empathy, empathy looks like as if, we've mixed that up into pity and all that. So you
Mhm.
really did clarify that. And these are the things that I do personally, but I didn't even know it was also under empathy, like celebrating. That's one thing that I love to do, celebrating with others. And
That's
you
awesome.
talking about it now has made me to want to go and do more of that, to seeing the benefits, in it. Little wins being celebrated would definitely bring about big wins. Thank you so much. I just wanted
Oh,
to
you're so
thank
welcome.
you. Thank you.
Thank you, NECA. Thank you so very much for sharing that.
And thank you, why not?
Yes, thank you. Why not? I appreciate it. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Got a few more minutes. Any other questions before we wrap up and I hand things back over to Blossom? Well, if there aren't any more questions. Here we go. Here's one. Um, does purpose change over time? That's a very, very good question. So, yes and no. Like I share in the resource, um, understanding your purpose, I believe that there is a primary purpose and then there's a secondary purpose. A primary purpose is about your identity in the sense of who you are beyond the role, right? Who you are. So whether you go to work or not, whether you lose your job, you have a job, you find a new job, whether you're married today and you're widowed tomorrow, roles are your secondary purpose. Your secondary purpose will change over time. Your primary purpose will not. You were created to be you. And I do believe we were created to be in a relationship with the creator. That's not going to change regardless of what you do today, tomorrow, the next day, or throughout eternity. That is your primary purpose. A lot of people, especially young people, they stress themselves out. I want to know what my purpose is. I want to know, well, you are your purpose. You are your purpose. When you sow into who you are and you develop and you cultivate that person that you were called and created to be, you can put on role A today and role B tomorrow. Your value is not going to change. Your identity is not going to change. Your role will change, but your identity won't. So you have a primary purpose which stays with you, which is you, part of you, woven into you as you move throughout life. But Different roles will have different seasons for different people. Some people, they have one job and they've had it all their lives. But many people in this generation, they'll probably have two, three, four, five, six different jobs, maybe even careers, right? So that's how I differentiate the two. Your roles may change, but your identity, who you are as a person, it doesn't have to, right? It's woven into who you are. So great question. Really good question. All right, another question here. Really good question. How much does one person's purpose affected by relocation? Well, again, who you are doesn't change regardless of where you are. Okay. I mean, we could have a conversation about nature versus nurture. Nature is who you are. It's genetic. It's just woven into who you are. And then there's nurture, the experiences that you have, how you are shaped over time. You're influenced over time, right? You can, your nature can be nurtured in positive ways or negative ways. And the reason why I'm mentioning this is when we experience changes like relocation, there can be loss, there can be an impact, but that doesn't have to determine who you are as a person. It might influence where you go, how you think, what you choose to do with your life, but that doesn't change the value and the essence of who you are as a person, I don't believe. So you can have a wonderful life, a very fulfilling, productive life as a result of who you are in pretty much any circumstance, any location. So, and that's what I believe. I don't want to appear ignorant about the many different factors that impact people's lives in different places. Yet, if we lose hope for a good future, then again, we fall into those cycles of thinking a certain way. Well, I can't do this because of this. This will never work. That's all or nothing thinking. But then that's also going to sow into those themes of powerlessness. Okay. So I don't want to live based on those ways of thinking, and I don't want anyone to live that way either. But circling back to your question, beyond those really intrinsic impacts of relocation, some people might think, my purpose will be different because I live in this country than this country. No, I don't think so. What you do, the role that you fill, the opportunities that come to you may be different. But if you think about anything that is really significant that someone has accomplished in this world, I have a friend who's leading the charge of this really, really highly political activism in this role. And as impactful as his role is, it's him being courageous that's helping him to do that. It's him being intelligent. It's him being committed and determined. That that's what's really enabling him to do what he's doing. If he was in a different country and he was living out his purpose, his identity, being courageous, being intelligent, being determined, he would be doing something of great impact there too. So a lot of people, they think it's about the thing that you do. It's not about the thing that you do. It's about the person that you are. Be that courageous person. Be that creative person, be that musical person, be that loving person, be that wise person, be that humble person. It's about who you are. It's about those intrinsic internal traits that will bring forth the fruit, right? You were created to be wonderful, so be wonderful, and you'll see wonderful results. I really do believe that. So don't spend your life trying to find the right thing or do the right, as if there's only one thing for you to do. There will be seasons where it will be clear, do this. This is now. Now is the time for this. but you can still be cultivating who you are all the way throughout your life, whether it's one of those now seasons or it's an I don't know season. Be who you are. You can always be the best version of you right where you are. And
Yeah,
with
yeah. Doc, thank you so much for that question. That's very important question, especially to the immigrants here. So thank you. I think you did
Mhm.
justice to that question. I have just one follow-up question. I want to see how you answer this question. I listened to you, softly, that. You always thought about your uniqueness your uniqueness from time to time. Now, my question here: do you think that this your long beards contributes to your uniqueness?
So do I think what contributes to our uniqueness?
They are long beards. Do you
My
think that
long beard?
yeah, do you think that it contributes to your uniqueness?
Oh, yes, of course, of course. Is there value to it? No, well, honestly, it's now because I did it. It's just here. It's a branding thing, but it's be gone sooner or later. It's only unique because it's a little uncommon. It's actually quite long. It's probably down to here by now, but I tie it up. But yeah, it's superficially unique. It doesn't really mean much to me. I enjoy it while it's here. I'll be gone sooner or later. But thank you. Thank you, sir, for that wonderful question. Thank you all for your attendance and your contribution to this conversation. Blossom, I'll hand it back over to you until next time.
Thank you so much, Dr. Blackwood. Thank you everyone for joining. We're going to be having another session just like this next month, so we'll be anticipating that. So now we'll be taking our raffle. So I have all our names in this small basket. So I'm just going to be picking one name. So our winner is Emmanuel Chinedu. So please stop by at our office to pick up your raffle tickets. 2300 Shepherd Avenue West.
Blossom, I supposed to
Congratulations.
win it. I supposed to win it.
Unfortunately, it was Emmanuel. Congrats, Emmanuel. Stop by anytime to pick up your ticket. Okay, thank you all once again so much. Thank you, Dr. Blackwood. Really appreciate it. And see you all next month. Good night. Good night, everyone.
Thank you. Bye. Congratulations, Emmanuel. Thank you, Dr.
Thank you,
Black.
everyone.
Bye.
Neka, thank you. Thank you,
Thank you.
everyone.